I have a confession. I want the market to crash in 2026. In fact, I am banking on it. While you are watching this video, scrolling through doom and gloom headlines about the debt ceiling and the recession, the wealthiest people on earth are popping champagne. Why? Because they know a secret that you don't. A crash isn't the end of the world. It is a wealth transfer. It is the only time in history where prime assets move from the hands of the scared into the hands of the prepared. Look at 2008. Look at 2020. If you sold, you lost. If you bought, you retired. The crisis was actually a clearance sale. And right now, you are being prepped to sell. We are approaching a mathematical breaking point. The US national debt just passed $38 trillion. We are currently adding $1 trillion of new debt every 100 days. That isn't sustainable. That is a system error. Most people look at that number and see the apocalypse. I look at that number and see the signal. The system must reset. But here's the trick. They aren't going to fix it. They are going to inflate it away. And when that bubble pops in 2026, the rules of the game will flip upside down. If you are holding cash, you will be the victim. If you are holding the glitch assets I'm about to show you, you will be the architect. So, I have one question for you before we begin. Which side of the trade do you want to be on? Do you want to be the exit liquidity for BlackRock, or do you want to be the bank? Because the window to choose is closing. Subscribe right now. We are going to expose the playbook the institutions are using to accumulate massive wealth before the 2026 reset. Comment dollar glitch if you are ready to exploit the glitch. Let's stop listening to the politicians for a second and look at the math. Because politicians lie, but numbers don't. We are witnessing a system error that has never happened before in the history of the United States. The US debt clock isn't just spinning, it is accelerating. We are adding $1 trillion to the debt every 100 days. To put that into perspective, if you spent $1 million every single day since Jesus was born, you still wouldn't have spent $1 trillion. The US government does that every 3 months. This creates the mathematical glitch. The interest payments on that debt have now crossed $1 trillion a year. We are spending more on interest than we are on national defense. We are spending more on interest than on the entire Medicaid program. This creates a death spiral. To pay the interest, they have to borrow more money, which creates more debt, which creates more interest. Now, apply the binary trap. If your household earned $50,000 a year, but you spent $100,000 a year and you used a new credit card to pay off the old credit card, would you call yourself rich or would you call yourself bankrupt? The answer is obvious. You are bankrupt. The US government is bankrupt. They just have a bigger credit card limit than you do. But here's the twist. A normal person has to declare bankruptcy. A government has a cheat code. They have a trap door. They cannot default at door 1. They cannot raise taxes enough to pay it off at door 2. So they must choose. Door 3. Inflate it away. They are going to print money until the debt becomes meaningless. They are going to make the dollar worth less so that the $38 trillion is easier to pay back. This means your cash savings are sitting on a trapdoor. The government is solving their problem by creating your problem. They are diluting your purchasing power to save their own skin. And the smart money knows this. That is why they aren't hoarding cash right now. They are dumping it. But they need someone to dump it on. And that brings us to the most vicious trap in the financial world. Exit liquidity. Now we get to the ugly part. If the smart money knows the crash is coming, why aren't they warning you? Why are they going on TV and telling you the economy is strong and buy the dip? Because of a concept called exit liquidity. Here's the rule of Wall Street. You cannot sell if there is no one to buy. If BlackRock wants to dump $10 billion of Apple stock before the crash, they can't just hit sell. If they did, the price would collapse instantly and they would lose money. They need a buyer. They need someone to hold the bag. They need you. This is where the financial media comes in. I want you to look at CNBC and Jim Cramer not as news channels, but as the marketing department for the whales. When you see them screaming buy, buy, buy at the top of a bull market, that isn't financial advice. That is a dinner bell. They are ringing the bell to call the retail investors to the table so the institutions can feast. It happened in 2008. Bear Stearns was telling clients to buy stocks 48 hours before they went bankrupt. It happened in 2021. Tech CEOs were dumping record amounts of stock while tweeting diamond hands to their followers. When the herd is running towards the cliff, the smart money is quietly stepping aside. So here's my rule for avoiding the trap. If you see it on the news, it is not a signal. It is an advertisement. Real alpha information is quiet. It is whispered in private rooms. Fake alpha is loud. It is shouted on cable TV. The wealth transfer only works if you take the bait. If you refuse to buy their overvalued paper, their plan fails. So, stop being the liquidity. Start being the predator And to do that, you need to think like a vulture. You need to look for the clearance sale. We need to rewire your brain right now. Most people are programmed to buy when prices are green and sell when prices are red. That is poverty logic. I want you to use retail logic. If you walked into a Ferrari dealership and saw a sign that said 50% off, today only, would you scream in terror and run away? No, you would call every bank in town to get a loan. A market crash is simply a 50% off sale for assets. Let's look at the receipts. March 2020, the COVID crash. The world was ending. The S&P 500 dropped 30% in 3 weeks. The news said, sell everything. Cash is king. If you listened to the panic, you sold at the bottom. But the vultures, the smart money, stepped in. They bought Apple, Amazon, and Tesla for pennies on the dollar. 18 months later, those assets were up 100%. The wealth transfer didn't happen because of a virus. It happened because of panic. Look at 2008. The housing market collapsed. You could buy a home in Florida for the price of a used car. Regular people were terrified. They said, real estate is dead. Who bought? BlackRock. They bought entire neighborhoods. Now, they are renting those same houses back to the people who were too scared to buy them. This is the hard truth about the wealth transfer. You make your money when you buy, not when you sell. When the 2026 crash hits, you are going to feel a knot in your stomach. You are going to see red candles. You are going to hear your friends crying about their 401k. That fear is the signal. That fear is the dinner bell. You need to stop looking at red candles as losses and start looking at them as discounts. But you can't just buy anything. If you buy the wrong asset in a crash, it goes to zero. You need to buy the specific assets that are mathematically guaranteed to survive the reset. And that brings us to the asset list. We have 3 doors, and door number 1 is the most critical insurance policy you will ever own. So when the everything bubble pops, where do we hide? We don't hide in cash. Inflation eats it. We don't hide in bonds. Default risks. We open the 3 doors. Door number 1, hard assets. This is what I call God's money. It is the only asset class with zero counterparty risk. If Apple goes bankrupt, your stock is worth 0. If the US government defaults, your bond is worth 0. But a gold coin? It doesn't need a CEO to make good decisions. It doesn't need a government to promise to pay you back. It just is. During the 2026 reset, paper wealth, derivatives, ETFs, fiat currency will burn. Hard wealth, gold, silver, land, commodities will shine. The rule of thumb is simple. If you can't hold it in your hand, you don't own it. When the panic hits, liquidity dries up. You want the asset that has survived every empire collapse for 5,000 years. Door number 2, the monopoly stocks. Now, I know I said the market will crash, but not all stocks are created equal. In a recession, weak companies die. Strong companies eat them. We are looking for cash flow monopolies. These are companies that have 1, 0 debt, so rising interest rates don't kill them. 2, pricing power, so they can raise prices with inflation. 3, a product you need, not just want. Think of energy pipelines. Think of defense contractors. Think of the tech infrastructure that runs the internet. When the crash hits, these companies don't panic. They look at their smaller competitors who are drowning in debt, and they buy them for pennies on the dollar. They act like Pac-Man. They eat the competition. So when the dust settles, they own 100% of the market instead of 50%. You want to own the Pac-Man companies, not the ghosts. But there is one more door. Door 1 protects your wealth. Door 2 grows your wealth. Door 3 creates dynastic wealth. This is the asymmetric bet. It is the riskiest play on the board, but if the dollar glitch plays out the way I think it will, this asset could do a 50x or 100x return overnight. Door number 3, the asymmetric bet. This is the one nobody in the mainstream wants to talk about because it scares them. An asymmetric bet is a trade where the downside is capped. You can only lose 1x your money, but the upside is uncapped. You can make 50x or 100x. In the 2026 reset, the ultimate asymmetric bet is Bitcoin. Now, put your emotions aside. I don't care if you like it or hate it. I care about the structure of the trade. We have established that the US dollar has a mathematical glitch. The debt is unpayable. Bitcoin is the only asset on earth that is the exact mathematical opposite of the US dollar. The dollar has an infinite supply. They can print trillions. Bitcoin has a fixed supply. There will never be more than 21 million. If the trapdoor opens and the government prints $10 trillion to save the system, where does that liquidity go? It flows into the asset that cannot be diluted. This isn't an investment. It is an insurance policy against the death of the fiat currency. If I am wrong and the government fixes the debt, impossible. You lose a small percentage of your portfolio. But if I am right, and the system resets, this is the asset that catches the wealth spilling out of the Titanic. The verdict: the 2026 crash is coming. It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. The math guarantees it. The debt clock guarantees it. You can be angry about it, you can pretend it isn't happening, or you can accept reality and position yourself. Most people will freeze. They will watch their 401k drop 50% and beg the government for a stimulus check. They are the victims. But you have the map. You know that panic is a clearance sale. You know that news is marketing. You know that the crash is a transfer. The choice is made now, not when the red candles start printing. If you are holding cash, you are holding a melting ice cube. If you are holding assets, you are holding the bucket that catches the water. Stop being the liquidity. Start being the bank. I have given you the 3 doors. Now you have to walk through one. If you want to survive the 2026 reset, you need to stay ahead of the news cycle. Subscribe to the channel, because while the rest of the world is sleeping, we are stacking. Comment $glitch if you are ready to catch the wealth. I'll see you in the buy zone.